Hello furniture friends, Katie here from Salvaged by K. Scott. Today I'm going to be updating this pretty underwhelming and mostly laminate mid-century modern style dresser with a fun pop of fall-inspired color. I found this dresser at a local secondhand furniture shop for $80, which is definitely more than I would usually like to pay for a piece like this, but it's in really good, clean condition, and I don't think it needs too much more work than a small adjustment on one of the drawers and, of course, a fresh new finish. So I'm willing to invest a little bit more up front in order to get away with less work on my end. The top and sides of this dresser are laminate over a combination of a particle board and solid wood frame, but the drawers are all solid wood, and that means that I can sand off this wood-looking print on their faces and have a really beautiful, actual real wood feature on this thing. I also need to spend some time cleaning up all of this overspray mess that is covering the beautiful dovetails. I like to start all of my flips with a good clean, and today I'm using this TSP alternative. It's a really good heavy-duty degreaser. I removed all of the handles from each drawer and then one at a time gave them a good inspection for any damage or possible repairs, and then I washed the whole dresser down inside and out. I flipped the dresser onto its back and unscrewed these legs so that I can work on those separately. And I had originally assumed that they had brass caps on the bottoms, but now that I see them up close, it's actually just some gold paint. I don't think I've ever seen this before. Next, I put on my RZ dust mask and started sanding off the finish from the bottom 4 drawers. I'm using some 80 grit sandpaper here to cut through that really quickly. I want to stain these and leave them as a nice real wood accent in my new design. While I was working on this sanding, I did need to stop on 2 of the drawers and re-glue the sides where the dovetails had started to come apart. I just squeezed out some wood glue and used a little craft brush to get into all of the surfaces, and then I just popped them back together and left it to dry. Then I switched to some slightly finer 120 grit sandpaper to start smoothing out the rough sand and work out any of the little swirl marks that were left behind by my sander. And once I had that done, I moved up 1 more grit to some 180, and I did that sand by hand in the direction of the grain just to make sure that everything was perfect and I didn't have any more of those squiggles. I didn't bother with fully stripping the top 2 drawers because I'm going to be painting those. I just smoothed out a few dents and scuffed them up.
Hello, little friend. Or should I say big friend? You are giant, Mr. Cricket. Let's go outside. Outside. Come on out here. Thank you.
I also needed to scuff up the rest of the dresser, which I'm going to be painting. I kept going with my 180 grit, which is going to be rough enough to take the sheen down off of the laminate and give my paint some texture to grip onto. Once I was completely finished with my sanding, I cleaned off the dust from all of the surfaces with a tack cloth, which is just some cheesecloth material with a sticky wax on it that picks up all that really fine dust. Before I do anything else, I want to fix this one drawer that's not sitting in its spot properly. It looks like someone has replaced the nylon glide on the back, but they have centered it, and I think it needs to be moved over about 1/4 of an inch so that the drawer slides in properly. I knew before I started this project that I wanted to use a really rich jewel tone on this makeover, but I couldn't decide which one of these 3 new colors from Fusion Mineral Paint I wanted to use. So I put up a poll on my Instagram stories and let my friends over there decide. And this gorgeous green undertone blue called Chesler took the gold in that poll. But I decided to go against the popular vote, sorry guys, and take a little bit of a risk for myself, and I'm going to be painting this dresser with elderberry. I want to have a really nice, clean, sprayed finish, so I'm using my gravity-fed HVLP spray gun. I filtered my paint into the hopper, and I usually add a little bit of water to most of the furniture paints that I use, but I find that Fusion is already the perfect consistency for spraying, so I don't add any water when I'm using it. I pulled out the air hose and tested the flow on a cardboard box. I'm using a 1.4 millimeter tip and spraying somewhere between 35 and 40 psi. You probably also noticed that I skipped my usual primer coat on this one. Fusion is an acrylic resin paint that has super great adhesion to most surfaces all by itself. And since I'm painting laminate, I don't need to worry about any natural wood tan and bleed through. It took me 4 minutes and 34 seconds to spray my first coat, and I let it dry for about an hour and a half. When I came back out to the garage for the second coat, I could see a few spots on the top where I had sanded down to the porous MDF layer, and the paint was definitely sitting on those spots differently. This is another reason why I usually go ahead and prime so that the paint looks consistent across any repairs or porous areas. But since this paint has a resin top coat built into it, it will seal that up, and my second coat of paint should make it look nice and uniform. I did give it a really light sand with some 400 grit sandpaper though to cut through any texture, and then I wiped off that dust before I sprayed my next coat. While that paint dried, I decided to start on staining these drawers. These are maple, which has a really bad habit of not absorbing stain evenly. So I wanted to help out that issue with some pre-stain wood conditioner. This is just a clear product that goes on before a penetrating wood stain to start sealing up the pores a little bit, and it just helps the color look more even in the end. It's really easy to use. You just brush it on in the direction of the wood grain and then wipe back any excess. And after about 30 minutes, you can apply any colored stain of your choice. I didn't want anything too dark on the drawers, so I tried a layer of Minwax's Fruit Wood color, but that didn't quite give me enough color. So I quickly popped over to our hardware store and grabbed a can of English Chestnut. Once I mixed that up in the can and took a look at my stir stick though, that looked too dark. So I decided to cut that or mix the two together. I'd say my mix ended up being about 1/3 English Chestnut to 2/3 of Fruit Wood. I brushed the stain on the same way as I had before, let it sit for about 30 seconds, and then wiped back the excess. Like I said, Fusion already has a built-in top coat, but since this isn't a piece that I'm going to be keeping and I don't know what it's going to be subjected to out in its next life, I want to give it a little bit of extra just in case protection. So I'm going to add 2 coats of Varathane's Diamond Wood Finish. I very gently mixed up my polyurethane to make sure everything was incorporated, but also make sure I didn't add a bunch of bubbles. I strained that into a clean spray gun and added just a little bit of my paint color to it. Tinting your poly like this just helps it from looking hazy or streaky when you're putting it over a really saturated color like I'm using today.
Appalachian sunrise meets my skin. Even with my eyes still closed, I can feel it coming in. Golden, golden, I'll follow only golden, golden, golden things.
While my first coat of poly dried, I wanted to shine up the handles a bit. They were brass plated, but a lot of that had already worn off, so I sprayed them with some pure gold spray paint, and then I decided that was too pale and it had kind of a weird green undertone, so I switched to my favorite gold metallic spray instead. I also wanted to repaint those brass feet onto the legs, and I figured that the easiest way for me was to measure out 1 inch down. I just used a pencil to make a mark there on the bottom, and I sprayed some of my spray paint into a cup, and then I just hand brushed it right on the bottom of those legs.
Gold leaves, gold anything, golden, I'll follow only golden, golden, golden things.
I sealed up the drawers with some Wise Owl Furniture Salve, which is a mix of beeswax and hemp oil, since I can't use my water-based polyurethane over this fresh oil-based stain. This is another case of just brushing it on, letting it soak in for a couple of seconds, and then buffing away any excess. And it gives such a nice, soft, protective layer. Once all of my hardware was dry, I reassembled the dresser and I brought her inside. There's always a huge split in opinions when I use a bold color like this, and I know this color choice isn't going to be everyone's taste, but that doesn't mean it's not absolutely stunning and something that someone will fall head over heels in love with. Thank you so much for following along with me on this makeover. Please make sure that you are subscribed for lots more furniture inspiration, tips, and tricks, and I will catch you all next time.